One of the other cool features Microsoft built out that is only available in Azure Virtual Desktop, this is not available in Citrix or in traditional remote desktop or any of these other products, is their Teams-enabled capabilities in AVD, where you properly configure Teams. The audio and visual is a lot of bandwidth to run through a remote server in that remote server environment, and they have a redirect built where you see it in your AVD window, but your audio and video is going directly between your client and Teams server. So you kind of eliminate that middle hop, and it can be a big advantage in this highly connected Teams-centric world to run AVD instead of other virtual desktop products.
Yeah, the optimization for Teams is key because if you're in a Microsoft environment, that's your main mode of communication. So you want that optimized. You don't want that lag on your video or your chat.
Absolutely. There's a lot of other cool, kind of more nerdy features that are fun to get into. This is the stuff you and I get excited about. A big one is FSLogix. This is a third party they bought a number of years ago and integrated into the product. But what does FSLogix give us, Jeremy?
Give us the ability to load our roaming profiles. At startup, these are profiles that you can customize a user's environment. So whenever they log into their machine, their desktop is the same. Everything looks and acts normal like a regular desktop or laptop. There's really the user experience is the same. And so, and that can be, no matter where you log in from, that profile is loaded at startup for you.
The value of that really comes through in larger farms. You get a company that's got 250 people in AVD, they might have 15 servers they're logging into, right? You've got this bigger farm. If you have to, every time you log in, Outlook's got to re-download your profile, and it's got to rebuild your index for your searching, your Copilot index, all these things that happen locally. FSLogix just takes that away, and it doesn't matter which one of the 15 servers you log into. You're instantly in the same profile with everything prepped. It's a real big deal in those larger environments. And I think really helps with scalability, but also even just, with remote desktop, there was sometimes a feeling of like you had to make sure you properly configured every server exactly the same. I feel like FSLogix takes away some of that pressure because it kind of automates a lot of that.
What are some of the other features that you like besides FSLogix?
The ability to use GPU-enabled VMs is pretty powerful. So if you've got a reason, you're doing maybe some CAD work, or maybe you're doing some local large language model work, or you've got a reason you need some extra performance, the flexibility that Azure Virtual Desktop gives you is incredible because you can spin up a proof of concept environment, spin up one server, put it on way stronger hardware. Maybe you got an engineering team that needs those GPUs and they're really heavy duty. You can split your farm into two sets of servers. You got some real cost efficient servers for your knowledge workers and some high-end GPU-backed machines for your engineers. That flexibility to test and try and use and leverage larger and different hardware is a real game changer. It's a matter of a couple clicks and you've got that change. It reboots the server, and before you know it, you're on new hardware. Real powerful tool for testing things.
One of the things that I thought was really great that they included in their service offering was the ability to spin up validation environments so that you can test code changes, different releases before you actually release them to production and see how things are affected. A lot of times that's not well thought out and you have to manually build out those environments. But AVD builds it as part of the service offering where you can just deploy that validation environment, do your testing, and then, hey, we're good to go for production.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think the ability to scale worldwide is another thing that AVD brings, whether that's backup and disaster recovery, where you can have your farm split between the East Coast and the West Coast, or you can have a bunch of servers replicated and have an off-site that's a cold site, that's a hot site that you can hit a button and it spins up. Being able to leverage the Microsoft networking is super valuable. So whether that's a private endpoint where you can have some Azure resources that are not exposed to the internet, but you can give AVD access into that environment, using ExpressRoute into your data center. If you've got a lot of data center centric data, you can have that higher capacity connection, that lower latency connection from AVD to your data center. And there's also ways to even configure it with on-ramps, local on-ramps. So let's say you got a team in the Philippines and a team in the US. it can be really valuable for those scenarios, because if you've ever worked with companies, especially in the APAC region, performance of the network between the US and the APAC can be really a challenge. You can have some really low latency, because you're cutting across the Pacific Ocean and then down. I mean, but to get to Australia, it's a long ways. It's physically a long ways, a lot of hops. And one of the things you get with the Microsoft environment in Azure is you build your servers in the right place and you build your infrastructure right. You're not running over the public internet between them and between there and here. You're running on Microsoft's backbone, and often Microsoft's backbone has much better performance than the public internet does. And it can be really valuable for those international teams that are working across time zones, across continents, to get an on-ramp into Azure's data center, and then everything is much faster from there.
The ability to use those private endpoints even within your own environment, so you're not exposing, like, let's say you need to connect to Azure storage, and you want to just isolate it to your virtual network. You can do that by virtue of the private endpoints. I think another key feature that I like is their integration with Traffic Manager and Azure Front Door to give you the shortest route to remote into your virtual machines. I'm a big fan of Traffic Manager, global DNS load balancing solution. I think it's awesome. And integrating that with Azure Front Door to make that connection. So no matter where you are in the world, when you need to connect, you're going to get that optimized path to get to your AVD virtual machine.
It's awesome. It's a huge feature. Something can be very expensive to build in your own technology, right? How are you building that? That's not an easy thing to build, and you just get it as a simple config on the Azure side.